Hey everyone, it's me again, and welcome to Faith's Faces. If you're new to my channel, welcome to my little corner of the internet. My name is Faith Grenade, and I put makeup videos here on YouTube, and you should subscribe and hit that little bell icon down below. It will notify you every time I upload, so you don't miss a minute of this riveting action. Ruffly collars. All the ruffles. Just more ruffles. Hey, you have stumbled across Face Faces, which is usually a get ready with me or a makeup tutorial like we've got going on here. It is Halloween as I am filming this. I have really dropped the ball this month. I really meant to get more makeup looks up for Halloween, but it just got it, like October in general got away from me this year. It was just one thing after another and I got really busy, and yeah, one and only makeup tutorial for the entire month of October is on Halloween Day as I'm filming this, which means it will be past Halloween by the time you guys see it, but I tried, okay? But today is a makeup tutorial, and this is the look we've got going on. Beautiful, glittery, cut crease action, nice thick bold lashes. Very neutral today. My Halloween costume is sort of like a Victorian, you know, kind of wizard warlocky type situation. I was going for pseudo-Victorian, pseudo-Eastern Europe, like I've got a big fuzzy hat I'm gonna be wearing. It's gonna be a whole thing, but basically I just wanted to look kind of dark and mysterious and sultry. That tends to be what happens with my Halloween costumes. I don't really dress up as specific things or specific people. I really just dress up creepy because I dress up creepy every day. So it's basically just like Tuesday for me. I am playing with a new palette today. I have so many new palettes that I just get super overwhelmed with what I want to try. So I just reached in and grabbed one, and I decided to try the Sephora Pro palette in the shade Smoky Jewels. Is that what this is called? Yeah, Smoky Jewels. This was the one that I was looking most forward to trying, so I went ahead and tried it today with this super neutral look. I am planning on using like the blues and greens and the more intense colors in here as well, but I wanted to see how the neutrals performed, you know? And it had been a while since I did a truly neutral eye look. Threw in some glitter just for that pop of extra drama. It's dark, it's mysterious, it's super sexy, I'm digging it, and if you want to see how I did it, just keep on watching, baby. Okay everyone, let's go ahead and get into it with this smoky warlord look. I'm gonna go ahead and take my Smith 232, this big old fluffy brush, and I'm gonna start with Driftwood, which is this shade in the palette right here, nice neutral medium brown. And I'm going to put this all through the crease. As you can see, we're going to build it up quite a bit. The shades in this palette are quite strong in pigment, and they're a bit on the dusty side, some of them. So I highly recommend tapping your brush off with this one and treading lightly, especially if you're going for a more subtle look than I'm going for here, which, I mean, if you're looking for subtle, this is not the Pro palette for you because it is packed full of smoky, dark colors. So this is definitely more of a smoky palette. I'm going to work on the outer third of the lid as well. That's going to help us with blending later. And on the other side of the eye, I carried this transition shade all the way through with just a light dusting on the inner nose bridge. I mostly like that look just because it looks a little bit more kind of hardcore, a little bit more intense. It's just that little subtle detail that will really intensify a truly smoky eye. And then I'm going to take the Smith 230 brush, which is the smaller version of the 232, and I'm going to dip into Earth. Now, Earth I had a little bit of trouble with. Earth is this guy right here, this deep dark brown. Earth is a smidge patchy, just a little. It's not a ton, and it wasn't completely unworkable, but I found that I really had to sort of pack the color on there in order to get an even spread before I started blending. I find that technique works a little bit better with this shade, so instead of for, you know, sweeping on the color in circular motions, just pat it first. Really get that pigment laid down and adhered to the skin. Because a lot of the time when you run into a shadow that's really patchy, it just means that the pigments in the shadow aren't adhering to your skin in as many places as they should. So one way you can sort of work around that sometimes is just taking that color and patting it in where you want it. So I'm going to pat it out in a sort of wing shape, and then I'm going to carry it into the crease proper just slightly, just to carve out that lid, make myself look like I have a bigger eyelid. And I'm just patting this really to build that color up. And I didn't do this on the other eye, and I find that doing it on this eye, this particular technique is working so much better than this one did. I was having some struggles over here with getting that to sit properly, but this one is working out pretty well. And then after you've gotten the strongest pigment where you want it, you can go back and sort of swirl around and blend around as your brush runs out of product. And if you lose pigmentation at any point in time, you can always add more later. Totally fine. And I'm going to add a little more to the outside edge here just to make sure that's nice and opaque. Post-blending. And now's the time where you're applying and blending for like 17 years. I'm almost blending this darker shade into my eyebrow because my eyebrow on this side goes further down than my eyebrow on this side, which goes further out that way. It's just an inconsistency in my facial symmetry, but a lot of the time I'm too lazy to attempt to correct it while doing my eyebrows, so I just end up managing it other ways. Okay, so now that that dark color is laid down and blended out pretty well, if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. You can always go back and blend it more later, but I am going to deepen things up. I'm going to take Obsidian, which is the black in this palette, with this little Real Techniques Bold Metals 203. I'm going to pat a little bit on this brush and knock the living heck out of it, because you don't want to work with black in large quantities. You want to work very, very slowly and in small amounts, building up. And this is just going on the very, very outer edge. I normally don't like to work with black because my eyes are pretty small as it is, and if I work with too much black, then it can make my lid space disappear entirely. But particularly for, you know, the occasion for Halloween, I wanted to do something really, really smoky, really dark, and I would be remiss if I did that without using black. So now I am going to cut the lid a little bit. I'm going to use some of my foundation, which is the Smashbox Studio Skin 15-Hour Hydrating Foundation, mostly because I don't have concealer. I am in the market for a good concealer, so if you know one, leave them down below. I tried the Tarte Shape Tape, and it's just way too drying on me, but I normally would cut a lid with concealer, but since I don't have any, foundation will do. And I'm just going to carve the inside half out to about the middle just to get rid of any of the darkness that have fallen on the lid. And I might disappear out of frame for this one because I need to see, but I start low and then I just sort of bring it up and around. This brush was by Sonia Kashuk. It doesn't have a name. It was part of like a limited edition set. So I don't think you can get it anymore, unfortunately, but any dense paddle-shaped brush will do. I believe some companies even have cut crease brushes now that are specifically designed for this step in the process. And I try to use minimal amounts of product when I'm doing this, because I find when you have too much product on your brush, it just goes further than you want it to, and you end up with concealer all over your eye, and it's just like not quite the look we're going for. So you want that top edge to be really sharp, and I carry it just above where my natural lid ends. So I carry it up into what would normally be my crease. I keep my eye open and I just make sure that I can see that concealer poking just above. Does that make sense? I'll get closer so you can see here. It's just barely poking up through the top, and that's going to make my lid appear a little bit larger. This doesn't have to be as perfect as it normally would because I'm going to be going back in with a liquefied glitter, so I can always sharpen it up with that if I need to. But for now, that's looking pretty nifty. I'm liking the way the shape is, I'm liking how everything's going. So now I'm going to take my Smith 253 brush, this little paddle, curved paddle, and I'm going to take Smokey Quartz, which is not only one of my favorite gemstones, but a very pretty taupe color in this palette. So I'm going to take Smokey Quartz on that brush, tap it off, and just lay it right where I put that concealer all the way across the lid. So that's what you should be left with. Pretty cool, right? Don't worry about blending. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, the glitter. So for the liquid glitter, I'm using the Stila Magnificent Metals Glitter and Glow Liquid Eyeshadow. It's a mouthful, but this is the one in Smoky Storm. This was the first of the two that I had, so it's a little bit on the old side, but it still works. And I'm going to use this again in the same place that we carved out that lid the first time. I just wanted more sparkle. You know, I wanted something that was a little more dramatic, a little more bam, pow, like, damn! You know, I wanted to really attract some attention there, so I'm going to pick up some product on that and just use the little wand that comes on the product and spread this glitter all the way across the lid where we put that Smoky Quartz color, just to add a little more sparkle. Now this one I bought a while ago, so it might be a little bit dried out. At least that's what it looks like from the outside. It still feels wet, but there doesn't feel like there's as much of it, if that makes any sense. So there you go. And then with whatever's left over, I'm just going to pop that on the inner corner as well. Not a ton, just enough for a little bit of sparkle there. Okay, so now on to, before I do the lower lash line, I am going to put mascara on real quick. Just so it's dry by the time it's time to put the eyelash on. This is the Urban Decay Perversion Mascara. So before you put your mascara on, if you need to do any additional blending, you should probably do that then. I found that I didn't really need to, but even if you put on your mascara, just look down into a mirror and use one of your brushes to just blend that glitter shade. I'm using the one that happens to have a little bit of black left on it, and just lightly, very lightly tapping on that shadow to create a smooth gradient between matte and glitter, because if you smear these around too much, these glitter and glow liquid eyeshadows, they're just going to flake all over your face, and that's not what you want. You want the glitter right where you want it and not where you don't. So just take your eyeshadow brush and very gently tap that matte shade over that glitter, and it'll help create a more seamless blend. So now for the lower lash line, I'm basically going to reflect a lot of the colors I used on the upper lids on the lower lash line. Really basic stuff here, but my costume is really like big and extreme, so I didn't want to do anything too terribly attention grabbing on the eyes. I just wanted something really smoky and really intense. But I'm going to take Driftwood, that same color that we used as our transition shade earlier, on a Real Techniques accent brush, and we're going to run that really roughly all along the lower lash line to get a little smoke going. So I'm going to take Earth on the same accent brush, tap it off, and get that just a little bit closer to the lash line. Tap that in. And then to really darken things up, if you would like to, this is totally optional, just take a little bit of Obsidian, that black, and go right up against the lower lashes, like right in between each lash, just to get that super dark, smoky sassiness. So to finish off the lower lash line, I'm going to take my Glitter and Glow liquid eyeshadow in Smoky Storm once again, and I am going to put a little bit of that on the inner corner of the lower lash line. So I'm just going to draw that right down here. Y'all can't see what I'm doing because I need to focus. But we're just going to draw that right down here and draw it not quite halfway over. This is just to create a little bit of interest on the lower lash line. It draws the eyes more toward the center. So now I'm going to do some false lashes off camera just because it's really, really boring to watch people put on false lashes. So I'm going to do that off camera. I'm using the Ardell Studio Effects. What are these called? 231s. These are the ones that look like the House of Lashes Iconics. The band can be a little thick on these, so just be careful when putting them on. Make sure you've got the band all nice and bended up so it can sit properly. But I'm going to glue these on with my House of Lashes lash glue, and I'm going to do my foundation really quickly, and then I will be back for some lips for you guys. We're back. Foundation is on. I actually tried a little something different today. I used the same foundation I always use, which is my Smashbox Studio Skin 15-hour hydrating foundation, which I really enjoy, and which doesn't break me out, more importantly. But every now and again, I pick up a sponge from, you know, Ulta or whatever, and I always end up trying putting on my foundation with a sponge because I see it looks so beautiful on so many other people. And I try it on myself, and I always end up using more product. It ends up looking more like splotchy and like patchy, so I end up having to use more product to make it look even. I end up with less coverage in the places that I need coverage and more coverage in the places that I don't need coverage, and it just never works for me. So if you guys have any like tips or pointers on how you get foundations to work with a sponge, let a sister know, because I have never been able to put on foundation with a sponge faster than I put on foundation with a brush. I can make a brush application of foundation look flawless in like 2.5 minutes, but you know, sponges just have never worked for me. I always end up having to use more product. The product always feels heavier on my skin, and you know, I always end up having to have, you know, deal with having less coverage than I would really like in the areas that I need it. So I tried that today. It looks all right, but I had to use 2 full pumps of my foundation, if not like 2.5, closer to 3, when normally I only have to use like 3/4 of a pump when I'm working with a brush. I set most of the areas of my face with Coty Airspun in Translucent Extra Coverage. I just sort of lightly baked right in here because I find that if I don't do that, my pores end up looking really visible. And then I set the areas of my face that tend to get oily with the Viseart setting powder. This is just called the setting powder from Viseart. I really, really like this stuff. I keep that in my kit a lot of the time for brides and things like that. You only need a very light layer of that, and it's not really going to provide any coverage per se, but it is going to keep those areas matte. So I used a little of that. And then for bronzer, this is going to come as a surprise to no one, the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. You know, why mess with a good thing? I lightly bronzed with that, and then I went in with the Balm's In-Stain Blush in the shade Argyle, which is just a light, I would call this a light baby pink, and it just gives that light little flush to the cheeks. It's not like a ton of blush, because I already have really strong eyes going on, so I didn't want anything in the complexion to sort of take away from that. I wanted the eyes to really be the main focus, so I kept the skin very simple. And then for highlight, I used my favorite Anastasia Beverly Hills Amrezy highlight. This is coming back in early December, and I'm probably gonna end up buying a backup or two because this is like my favorite highlight of all time. I'm probably gonna end up buying one for my kit and an extra one for myself because it's just so smooth and so beautiful. Like, the texture on this thing is next level smooth. And now for lips. I think for lips today I am going to wear black because this is just begging for a deep, dark black lip with these bold ass eyes. I had a couple of different lip colors floating around in my mind. I thought about using like a deep maroon or like a really, really dark plum, like almost black, but not quite. And then I thought about using black. I have two new lipsticks to try. I have one of the Too Faced Melted Matte liquefied longwear lipsticks. And then I have the new Fenty Beauty black lipstick. So I don't know which one I want to try. Let's put on whatever lip color I'm wearing today. There we go. So much better. I opted for black. Actually, my friend Taryn opted for black. I literally messaged her on Snapchat and I was like, black or dark plum, which should I do? And she was like, black. And I was like, okay. So this is the Fenty Beauty Stunna Lip Paint Fluid Liquid Lipstick in the shade Uninvited. This is supposedly her black. Say, spoiler alert, this isn't black. This is a deep, dark blue-gray, but it is not black. At least not in my opinion. That is it, guys. That is the finished look along with my puffy collared shirt. Without further ado, the thing I always forget to do, let's do some awkward posing. Awkward posing. Looking down, looking forward, looking fierce. I hope you guys found this video helpful, informative, or entertaining. If you did, there's a button for that. Spank that like button in the butt. You know it deserves it. And if you want to see more from me, you've got a couple options now. You can click the videos on either side of my head to binge if you're bored or bummed out, or hey, you can hit that button that looks like my face and subscribe and become a member of the faithful today. I put out new videos every Sunday. Thank you guys so much for watching and joining me today, and I will see you in the next video. Toodles!